Today is July 15th, 2019, and welcome back to the Treehouse. This is The Fallen Fruit. I'm Catherine Urban.
I'm Stephanie Ginese.
Lynette Ramos.
And today we are doing some real talk on the current climate of astrology and the world. We're in kind of a tough time astrologically, and boy, does it show.
We've been feeling it, I think, for sure. And being in a water season right now, I think it just lays it on even thicker because it's like everybody's going through it. Collectively, we're going through it. And then it can also feel very isolating because we're not communicative about our emotions, I feel like, as a whole, as a society. So I feel like that adds to this layer of feeling like, ugh.
For sure.
Is it Leo season yet?
For sure. Like, I'm glad you brought up the elements, Stephanie, because like when we look at the totality of the elemental balance of where the planets are, it really gives us an at a glance feel for what the social and political, well, more social, like human based experience is kind of looking like. So yeah, we have a lot of water right now. It's Cancer season, and luckily, we do have some planets dipping into Leo, but it definitely feels damp right now. It definitely feels that kind of emotional sense right now.
Yeah, as a Pisces, I was fine. I'm like, what is everyone talking about? Like,
Yeah.
everything is completely fine.
You know how to swim, right?
Yeah, it felt super normal. And then, and Catherine will talk more about this, but yesterday when that Pluto aspect came in, that's when I felt like this. I literally felt like I was crying blood. Like it was so intense, but what was so beautiful about it is because not that I knew a lot about the transit, but I knew kind of what season we were in, and I was just like, let's just fucking go for it. Like I just was like, that's when I started writing about what I was feeling, but it was more than just like emotional. It was like felt like deep and dark and like just super intense.
Yeah, so Pluto rules the underworld, and so when you say deep and dark and intense, it really does. It's something that kind of hits you at your core.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy because I actually had a session with Lynette on Saturday morning. I had a womb cleansing. But when we were trying to remove maybe some of that stagnant negative energy that I'm trying to obviously get rid of, I saw, as she was doing the work and laying her hands on me, I saw this like black, almost like sludge, sort of just like dripping off of my entire body and just like falling into the floor. And
wow.
Yeah, it was intense for sure.
That's a great example actually of Pluto medicine. Like what a great way to spend your sun opposite Pluto transit.
I didn't even know that kind of transit was even happening at that time. I think I didn't know until we started talking about it earlier. So, yeah.
You're plugged in.
I was plugged in. Boop, boop.
Yeah, well, that's one of the benefits of looking at astrology is like, instead of saying, oh my God, Pluto on the South Node, hell and fire, you look at that as an opportunity to kind of take your power back, because Pluto does deal with a lot with power. And what a great way to kind of work with the energy in a way that serves you is on that day, I'm going to plan my hypnotherapy session or my therapy session or any kind of healing session, or I'm just going to clean the hell out of my house kind of thing.
And I think that sometimes it's like we want to be able to be willing to go into those intense moments, because it's almost like, would you rather have, let's say, an amount of suffering kind of drip in over weeks or months, or would you want to just go through this hugely transformational, intense few hours? Yeah. It's almost like let's just start to condense that and let's just do it versus it be lingering and it be kind of in the background. And so that's the one thing I appreciated yesterday with that Pluto energy. It's just like I can feel it coming in and doing its work.
Yeah. It was that cliche of like, just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
Like just, it'll be, a concentrated amount of maybe pain or discomfort. But after you're done, you're like, oh, great. Now I can like make room for things and the death card has been coming up a lot for folks as well when I'm doing tarot readings lately. So I think it was also picking up on that, like Pluto transformation, transmutation energy. Like, I think people are starting to feel that we have to make room for newness, new things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up too, because what an interesting way to observe like how, you know, the collective backdrop is really influencing some of your tarot readings, some of your work with clients. And yeah, Pluto, it does deal with death, and it deals with also rebirth. So the readiness for the new. And we're definitely seeing that in the collective right now. So collectively, we've got Saturn conjunct Pluto on the South Node. A lot of astrologers are talking about it. If you're still kind of wondering what this means, basically it's a big deal. Saturn and Pluto conjoin about every 36 years. And that in and of itself is a big deal because Saturn deals with structures. And right now in the collective, we're looking at a lot of like the systemic structures that mold us as a society and give opportunities to some and hold the rest of us back in a lot of ways. So we're looking at those and we're calling them out. And the part that is doing all the calling out is Pluto. So Pluto is unearthing all the rot, all of the underneath layers, because you might have, you know, I just moved into a new house. So when I was looking at houses, one of the things that we're looking out for is, wow, this house looks really pretty, but what does the basement look like? Is there mold under there? You know, what's behind that wall? Is there like a leaking pipe or whatever? And so you want to take a look at what's underneath. So that's Pluto's job, is to kind of excavate and dig. So these planets conjoin every 36 years. And we take a look at, you know, it's happening somewhere in our personal charts, but in the collective, it's really about government and also power of corporations. Because Pluto deals with power. It deals with very big power. So one place that we look at that kind of power is, I mean, at its core, Pluto is like the forces that you can't necessarily fight, like things like death and rebirth. Like we are part of that. There's no escaping it. You can change your relationship to it, but you know, you can't really escape it. It's that big. So when we look at power structures in the world, we also associate that with Pluto. So we have big corporations right now like Google and Amazon, who doesn't pay taxes, and Google and Facebook collecting our data. And it's just so big. Like, yeah, sure, you could delete Facebook or Amazon, but then you're like, you know, missing out on certain amenities. So it's like, at what cost kind of thing. And can we have both? Can we have our one-day delivery and also force them to pay taxes?
I think the answer is yes, because we should just be holding these corporations accountable. It's like, well, if you want to be successful, if you want to be the best at your game or whatever, it is about respecting people. And there were Amazon walkouts today.
Yeah.
Because they're not treating their employees fairly.
Exactly.
And I think people are. It's like little revolutions popping up everywhere on smaller like scenes and bigger scenes. And so it's an intense, like you said, time and energy, and everybody's feeling it. But I feel like everybody's ready to manipulate that energy and control it and use it to oppose these like bigger forces and sort of like burn down these structures.
Yeah. So I'm glad you bring that up too, like the idea of these little revolutions going on, because so I'm gonna get there. Okay.
You know, I'm always ready to get there.
So Saturn and Pluto, they conjoin every 36 years. Last time this happened was the 80s when Reaganomics happened. The idea was that trickle down economics were supposed to put more hands in the corporate owners, and the idea was that they would find it in the goodness of their hearts to trickle down those benefits to their employees. Didn't happen.
Sounds so nice.
Here we are today. Well, anyways, these two conjoin every 36 years. They're conjoined on the South Node right now. So that is much more rare. And the South Node is the cosmic flush valve, and it says time to end, time to let go, release, release, release. So we're in this time where we're ready to redefine our structures and uproot all the problems and try to create something new. And we're doing it in a much bigger way this time around. Now, these 3 planets, or these 3 points, are part of tomorrow's lunar eclipse. And this lunar eclipse is happening at 24 degrees Capricorn. So you have the moon conjunct Pluto, conjunct the south node, conjunct Saturn. That is not warm and fuzzy and
at all.
The moon likes to be comfortable. The moon tells us about what we do to nourish ourselves, what we do to feel safe. And right now it is just the opposite. So opposite that, we have Venus conjunct the north node and then the sun. Squaring that, we have Eris and Aries, and she is the goddess of discord. She's the rebellious one. She is the one who's gonna say, oh, you're not gonna include me? Well, let me fuck up your party. So that is basically what's happening right now.
Yeah, it almost, before you got to that point, it almost made me feel like if the South Node is supposed to also be about bringing something with you, but transforming it, it almost makes me think about women, because a lot of us don't know how to utilize our power. So it's like, how can we learn how to step more into our power, be comfortable in our power, and learn how to use it, and understanding that we're going to probably be doing some, like, what's the word? It's almost like you're playing with it. It's not going to be perfect, but it's like we have to be willing to try some things out, fall on our face, get up, because I think that that's part of the imbalance, is that women are not in their power.
Women are not in power, period. Because when we're talking about the government, we're talking about these big corporations. Who's in charge of all this? White men.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, for me, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, I want to be the woman that can be in the boardroom in my black suit talking about money. And then the next day I might have my feet in the grass doing healing work. And I think a lot of us, especially as healers, some of us are, in that healing profession, sometimes we don't want to talk about the structure and the money and the power. And I think that we have to learn how to flow in between those two worlds.
I agree. And that's the beauty of being a sovereign human being, is that you get to decide who you are, and that's really what we're seeing in the collective right now, is liberating the individual and saying, society doesn't get to tell me how to live my life. I do. And if I want to wear a suit one day and then cry in my pillow the next day, you know what I mean? Like,
that's life.
That's life. We should all have the ability to access the spectrum of our humanness.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot too lately. I've been having conversations when I'm doing readings with people, and I've had a lot of moms lately, and the medicine has been a lot of self-care, but also understanding that, yes, being a mother makes a part of who you are, but that is not entirely who you are. Like, you are still a powerful woman. You may still, have your vices. You are still a sexual being. You're going to say things, you're going to do things that don't fit that mold of, like, the perfect, soccer mom. And if the other parents in the PTA knew your dark secrets, it would all unravel. And I'm at that point where it's like, fuck it. So, like, we did my interview, and I always listen to our shows back just because I'm like, what do we sound like? Like, what are other people hearing? So I listened to the one when we did my interview, and I was like, oh, as part of it, I was like, man, I said some, like, real raw stuff in there. And then at the same time, I was like, but that's me, unapologetically.
That's you.
And I can't apologize for it. And none of us can apologize for it anymore.
Yeah. And I think that part of the patriarchy, part of the programming is for the mother to think that she has to be so self-sacrificing, otherwise she's not a good mom, when we know that how can I parent my child effectively if I feel broken, if I feel like I don't matter, versus if I feel healthy and strong and powerful and loving and nurturing and I feel whole. Then the way that I parent, the way that I come to my child is completely different.
Yep.
So we need to
True.
stop. We need to get out of that self-sacrificing to the point of like, we don't really matter space.
Right.
Yeah, and on that same subject or theme too, like how can we bring that wholeness to all of our relationships, you know, in a culture where we just are overworked. And you might be too tired to socialize, or you might be too tired to come home and focus on love as a practice. I think that's one of the themes that we're seeing with the North Node in Cancer and this eclipse season, and also Mercury retrograde taking place, half of it in the sign of Cancer, is we're being asked to connect with more nourishing practices. You know, we're so busy, and our system is so broken, and it's exhausting.
Yeah. Part of some of the work that I do in my sessions is how can we get this person to be more efficient with their energy? Because a lot of people who are up leveling, taking on bigger projects, etc., it's like they're already feeling overwhelmed. So then how am I going to up level if I feel like I can't even manage what I have? So it's about looking at where you are, looking at where you can forgive yourself, kind of doing some diving like the Pluto thing, and then you can free up some energy. Then you can go into those bigger projects and do some other things. So it's sometimes we have to step back and take a moment and reassess and do some self-inventory and then move on to those bigger things.
I love that. I love that.
Efficiency. There's a lot of power in efficiency and in slowing down, because that's where we're in that stress mode. When we're in that stress mode, biologically, we can't be more creative.
Right.
We can't be more intuitive. We can't use our wisdom and intelligence more. So we have to be able to step back and nourish ourselves.
That's a great practice. How can we take the energy that we're using on worry and etc. and transmute that into something that's more empowering?
Yeah.
I think that's what Pluto tried to teach us, essentially. It's that understanding of like death and transitions and cutting off the dead branches or the dead limbs, you know. That was the awesome thing about the womb clearing. It was like I was transitioning out of a relationship and just all these sort of things. I'd never done any healing centered on the womb, and obviously there's like a lot of past and trauma, and I was talking about like generational things I think I'm carrying that aren't just mine. So doing that, I definitely felt like lighter and like more powerfully connected and ready to think about the womb as the sacred temple that it is.
That's so powerful. Yeah, the womb is definitely a portal to our ancestors.
Yeah. Can I say something about your ancestors?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there was a point, because she talked about the generational thing, and we all have that, whether you want to call it curses or patterns or whatever that are passed on. So there was a moment in the session where I called forward her mother and her grandmother and her great-grandmother, and it got to the point where I couldn't even speak anymore, because as soon as we started calling those energies in, the emotion was just so powerful, and I just started to cry. And it made me think about, number one, how present they are. Some people are afraid of the unseen because it's, for some reason, it's spooky to people, but it's just, we don't see it with our naked eye, but it's present. So number one, they're there. And number two, our ancestors are so proud of the work that we're doing. My God, like the love that pours through, like when they knew she was doing this work, like the words that were given to me was like, thank you for being the portal to allow us to do this healing work through you. And so it was so beautiful.
Wow.
It was really, really beautiful. And so I think that, you know, more of us want to look at those things so that we can begin to transform these things. And we're already suffering in some ways. We might as well make use of it, right? Let's use this pain or whatever for the good and for advancement, instead of just living in it and just letting it linger and letting it just kind of
stay stagnant.
Yeah, it's just
take up space.
Yeah. Wow, that is so beautiful. And what a beautiful illustration of the energies going on too, because you were talking about going back into the past in different ways, you know, Stephanie's personal past, but also her lineage. And that's a lot of what Mercury retrograde is asking us to do, as well as Pluto's. It's like, go back and do some digging. And that's just amazing. That's so amazing. I want to get a session with you.
You should. I would highly recommend. I told Lynette too, you should call it like the breakup package. It's like, let's heal this, you know, energy, and starting to think about, I've been reading up too on like sexuality and seeing it as a sacred practice, obviously, but we don't implement it as much. But it's like, it's a creative force and a creative energy. And I think people don't think about it in that sense. Like, yes, you are creating human life or trying to avoid to, but thinking about it in that sense of like creative with our arts and our like healing work and things like that.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Because it links to your sacral chakra, and the sacral chakra is just this, it's your second one, and it's associated with the element of water. And if you think about sexuality, there are fluids involved, but it's very instinctual. It's very primal. It is very kind of like finding your flow with that person, allowing your feelings to flow. And it's easy to get that build up. Have you guys heard that? This is something I heard a long time ago. It's a theory that says that energetically, any partner that you are intimate with stays within your electromagnetic field, your aura, for 7 years.
Oh.
Unless you do healing work to like move that energy forward. Because when you're intimate with someone, you almost get like energetic links with that person.
Yeah.
And that could be also with a family member or a close friend too, but specifically in sexual relationships, you have these energetic bonds, and it takes time for those bonds to kind of separate fully. But yeah, if you're doing energy clearing work, womb work, then you can kind of speed that along.
Yeah. I'm born again. Sort of.
Yeah, there was a time that I had a breakup with someone, and this is before I kind of knew more about this stuff, but intuitively I went on a cleanse for like, it was only like 3 days, but I just had like smoothies and stuff like that. And I literally, at that third day, I felt that cord, that bond, that connection that I wanted to kind of let go. It kind of dissipated. But before the cleanse, it was like I was heartbroken and I was like sad, and I'm like, how did I get here again? You know what I'm saying? And so literally after that cleanse, I felt amazing. And a couple weeks after, this person came back, and I was like, nah, I'm good.
I'm good.
So yeah, it is about sometimes having those practice where you're intentionally doing something to kind of clear or rid yourself of it.
I feel like people attempt to do that, but they do that in these almost sort of surface kind of ways, because we're not taught how to heal. We're not taught about energy work or things like that, or karmic cords. So what do people do? They get a haircut.
Right.
They get a tattoo. They, change up, something about them, their style. So it is very like a surface thing. Sometimes maybe like going on a food cleanse or a diet in that way, or a trip. But to think about it like as an energetic thing that needs to be taken care of. Like you can't just cut your hair and be like, he's out of my life now, or she's out of my life.
Yeah, because that's more like exterior. That's more on the surface level. And then, if you do a cleanse, then you're getting inward.
Yeah.
And then if you do the breakup package with Lynette, then like you're really getting in. You're getting in
at
the
$199.
Yeah, you can go for all three too if you wanted.
Yeah.
Like do the hair, do the cleanse, do the womb work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I cut hair part-time, and it can be rewarding for some people. Like I know that it does make people feel better when they get their hair cut. Even as I'm cutting people's hair and they're still looking at themselves in the mirror with like wet, flat hair, they're like, oh, it already feels better. And so it does. There is a lot of energetic properties in our hair, but it still very much is just kind of scratching the surface.
Yeah.
It's a gateway drug.
we hope that's a gateway drug into energetic healing. And you're like, cool, like I feel a little lighter, got my dead ends cut off, or, you know, that Lizzo song. She's like,
I love Lizzo.
I love that song. Yeah, but to think about, you know, how do I heal my heart? Like, how do I heal my body? Obviously, when you've been intimate with somebody for a period of time, there's probably a million little chords and connections that have happened.
And speaking of healing, Pluto, which is very active right now and will be through the eclipse, it will bring up where you need healing. It will show you where you need it. A lot of times Pluto will bring up things that you thought you've already healed. And that's what we're seeing in the collective too, where it's like, oh, I thought we had the civil rights movement. Yeah, we did, but there's still systematic racism and sexism and classism. So Pluto's like, oh, you didn't heal all of that. Okay. So just watch. If you're getting some of those resurfacing feelings coming up right now of the past, of past emotions, sit with it, because Pluto translates to riches. So when you go to the underworld, we talked about this in one of our earlier podcasts, but when Inanna goes down to the underworld, she has to take off an article of clothing at every gate to the underworld. And once she gets down there, she is totally naked. She is raw. She is exposed. And it's so that we can actually get a more intimate look at our deepest pieces of ourselves. So it's hard to sit with these emotions and the things that are coming up, but it's so valuable because that's where you get the riches of Pluto. Pluto also carries with it a little bit of obsession and compulsion. So if there's an event in your life or a person that you just can't stop thinking about it, you know you should let it go, but you're having a hard time with it, maybe sit with it. See, what is this situation trying to show me? What can I learn from this? What do I need to let die in myself so that I can access a power that I didn't even know I had? So it's kind of through these wounding experiences that we get our power. And you see that with every hero myth. Every hero starts out as like a brazen, bold, nothing can hurt me. And then you get kicked down to the underworld and you're a little bit embarrassed. Like if we look at like the Hercules myth, like, or even Inanna, like she had too much ego. She had too much pride and she ends up in the underworld naked. But then when she comes out, you know, she knows who her friends are. Her Demuzi, her life partner's like, I got you. I'll spend half the time in the underworld. So you get a new kind of power from staying with these kind of deep, gut-wrenching feelings that are coming up.
Yeah, I think, and I heard this the other day, that we're kind of in this culture of quick fixes. Hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little sad. Let me get that pill. You know, or hey, you have XYZ disease or whatever. Here's a pill. You know, I don't want to say, the point is that we need to go through those lifestyle changes. We need to go through those emotional evaluations about where we are. And sometimes those things that seem bad are really the best thing that you need. And so it doesn't always have to be so simple and easy and positive and all of that, because that's not where our growth is. Usually when we look back, those points that we had to dig really fucking deep to get through. And I was taking this online class of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it was about abundance. And he talked about the moment that you set that intention and that you begin to make those changes that you want to make, right? Your mindset, the way you think or whatever, shit will go wrong. Your bank account might go negative. You know what I mean? You might lose something. And he says, let that die. This is a life initiation. And you're going to keep going through those life initiations over and over and over and over as you up level. So don't look at those things as a setback. Look at it at like, okay, that's the old me. That's the way I used to think. That's the way I used to behave. That's a product of my past. So keep that mindset, keep that focus. And I think a lot of us, what happens is as soon as it gets sticky, we want to turn around and go back to the way we used to be.
Totally.
And that it's not time for that now.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and the quick fix is a Band-Aid. You're not going to get to the root of the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
totally.
won't. Yeah.
You got to go in and extract.
Yeah.
And get the sludge out.
And this is when I feel like tarot readers, astrologers, people who do certain healing work, get help. Like, it's okay. Like, or speak to a friend. Like, these moments, you don't have to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people think that you have to be complete, like fall completely apart. No, you can do this in a way that you feel supported. And even if that you have moments of uncertainty or you're not sure how you're going to get through it, find someone that you trust that maybe can help you through it and give you another perspective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think perspective is important. Like, again, with the tarot reading, a lot of reversed cards have been popping up for me, which typically don't. And there's
really?
like the reversed Empress has been following me.
Can you tell us a little bit about Reversed Empress?
So it is about like self-care, like not doing everything for everybody else, kind of stopping that very nurturing outward Empress mama energy, and turning it around on yourself, and like
so
changing
perfect.
your
Yeah.
perspective about what self-care even looks like. It is not bubble baths and, you know, a glass of red wine every night, although those things are lovely. But it is about sitting in the pain. It is about doing things a little more abstract or changing the perspective. That's the thing when I see especially like reversed cards, it's like we have to change the perspective. Like you said, talk to other folks. They're going to give you a different perspective. Tarot reading is a great way to change your perspective, or at least give you a visualization or insight into maybe where your thinking should lie. Obviously knowing what's going on with the cosmos and things of that nature, and knowing what's going on with you internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that for me this week, because I was born during eclipse season, so I always feel the eclipses. The eclipses, you're really going to feel them most if they interact with something in your chart, but everyone can kind of tap into that energy. No one is immune to it, but I always really feel them. And I know that this weekend I've been kind of having like a check-in. It's like, all right, well, I'm so busy helping people all the time. You know, I do readings for people and I cut hair all the time, but I'm really feeling the need and gaining the awareness that, who do I need to reach out for right now, so that I can kind of learn from other practitioners, but also get the nourishment that I need. That's something that a lot of us do. Like when you become a hypnotherapist, or when you become a massage therapist, or a tarot reader, or astrologer, like you are not perfect. You are not solved. You are not totally done doing the work. Like we all need each other.
For sure.
And that's why I love to hear when people on my team are doing amazing things for themselves on a personal level. And when you do that for yourself on a personal level, it makes you better at what you do.
I think that more and more people are going to be coming to people like us too. I think that we're in the process of overcoming certain ideas about what we do. And though I think there's a lot of benefit to like Western medicine and the therapy and all of that, I think there's a place for all of that. I don't ever think there's like a solid good or bad. But I think that some of those modalities are more surfaced. And we need to start looking at whether it's your physical health, whether it's your mental health, whether it's your relationships. We in those modalities are not set up to go to the root. They're not set up for that. No. So for example, with astrology, when you come to an astrologer and say, okay, these are the things that I have going on, you can tell someone, listen, here's kind of your innately kind of who you are. Here are the places you're going to have some challenges. Here are some places that you can work with. It's getting to the act. It's like the blueprint. And so I think that more and more people are coming to those types of modalities where we're really getting into the root of it. And we don't always have to go to someone that went to college for 8 years.
They don't even like, they're only taught what, is in the books and like what the hospitals and things like that. It's a business. Like, we all know that the health industry is just a big business. It is Google. It is Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
They're selling a product, which is pills.
Big Pharma kills people.
Big Pharma kills
like,
people.
why do they have commercials on TV? Like, why am I sitting at home? And for the record, I do not have cable, but because I'm sick of being sold these crazy medications like in my face. And why are their commercials the longest?
Right.
And why is their list of side effects including death?
Right.
Listen, I have to talk to people about hypnotherapy. Like, will I wake up? Like, you will wake up. It's not, and I'm not mad, like, if you ask those questions, but the point is, it's like these medications, it's like you could be going for a headache, but yeah, like you said, maybe I'm depressed, but now am I going to be like suicidal and homicidal? Why aren't we questioning those things? Like, I just think it's so silly. Like, let's use our minds here.
But they want to regulate, and all that plant medicine. And it's like, listen, I smoke a lot of weed and I am still here.
Yeah.
I have not once died.
Not one time.
Once. Not once. Inside a little bit, but physically, I've been here.
Oh, I died inside
plenty of times. That's our emo episode. But people have this, it's illegal. Like, you could spend life in prison for a plant.
Yeah,
like, the
insane.
system isn't completely fucked. We're not taught about healing the root. What is the root? Spirit is the root. What does plant medicine do? It gets to the root. And they don't want to fix our spirit. They want our spirit broken so they can control us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Nothing more needs to be said. Yeah, but also I was just thinking about this the other day about how it's illegal to grow tobacco because the cigarette companies own it. And so I
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very...
And tobacco's a sacred herb for a lot of indigenous cultures.
Absolutely. And now it's highly regulated and poisoned. Like, tobacco in and of itself isn't nearly as bad for us as smoking a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tobacco has a lot of medicinal properties, and it's the corporations that have added all these other chemicals to it. What's going to happen when Monsanto wins the bid for marijuana? And I am not trying to fearmonger right now. I am just like, this is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I almost don't want weed to be like legalized. I almost would rather see it decriminalized, like in every sense.
Yeah, decriminalization, of course, for sure. But yeah, I like when we live in Ohio, and so when it was on the ticket, it was like, well, who's going to be in charge of our marijuana? And it was big business people who had money, bad people, misogynistic businessmen, assholes. And I was like, I am not buying my weed from them. Like, I will still call the homie up the block and, like, you know, mom and pop shop weed. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
right. Because if it's decriminalized, then you can grow it and you can make your own tinctures and stuff from it. That's my whole reasoning behind that.
But yeah, I don't want big business weed ever. No.
So yeah, that just makes me nervous a little bit. And weed is, you know, it has a consciousness to it.
Oh, for sure. It has its own, you know, people use it in their spiritual practice.
Yeah.
There's a book in my cart right now on Amazon, but I haven't bought it because I'm like, maybe I can find it at a bookstore. So, but it's called Cannabis and Spirituality, and I do use it in my practice. I mean, I use it for everything, obviously, but
yeah,
any excuse. But as a part of the practice too, I found that it just can help like open you up. You're able to kind of focus on your intentions and quiet the other sort of things happening in your mind, the to-do lists and all that. And also it kind of like sheds my inhibition. So like I'll put music on and all of a sudden I'm like high as a kite, just like dancing around, not worried about anything else in that moment except that moment. So I'm just saying, if you're open to it,
Yeah.
roll up.
It's
Great
a
for meditation.
self-care practice.
Yeah,
It is a
awesome
self-care
for
practice.
meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple of different things.
Yeah, obviously all the health benefits, but anxiety is a big one that I use it for as well.
Yeah.
Because I did, when I was, real quick, I won't go into a super long story, short story. But after I had my first son, Gio, I went to the doctor and I'm like, I'm just tired all the time. And they were like, depression. So he put me on Prozac and I hated it. It definitely turned me into a shell of a person. I was not my fiery, funny, witty self. So I stopped just taking it and didn't go back to that doctor. But then that was when I did reintroduce marijuana into like my life. Obviously because I hadn't been smoking because I was with child. But I think that made a big difference in dealing with my anxiety and depression and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people do benefit from prescription medication. It definitely has its place. Western medicine has its place for sure. But I think that the values of these companies are not in a good place, not in everyone's best interests, because I'm of the generation that our parents were so quick to just prescribe us pills. Like, oh, well, we have fast food and instant coffee. Like, why not a quick fix for my child's behavior?
Yeah.
You know, and instead of getting to the root of the issue, again, it's like, well, here, how about we just give you this? Like, this is just what you need. And then as a 10-year-old, you accept that. My parents put me on a pill when I was young, and I fortunately was able to wean myself off of it when I was a senior in high school and figure out who I was and figure out what I needed to make myself happy. But my husband, on the other hand, the pill that they put him on at a young age, it didn't work. And so they kept switching it. And he believes that it permanently fucked him up.
Wow.
Like
That's sad.
yeah. So he still takes a prescription pill because if he goes off of it completely, he's weaned himself down a great deal, but he feels comfortable where he's at right now. He doesn't really want to take that risk of coming off of it.
Right.
And that's for a couple different reasons. But we also believe that had he not been put on a pill at such a young age,
Yeah.
that maybe he wouldn't need it at all.
Yeah.
And his parents have apologized for it. They were like, sorry, like, we didn't know better.
Right. The information wasn't out. You believed authority back then. It was like, well, they said.
Right.
Yeah. And every generation has its burden. And, you know, our parents, well, my parents' generation, they had like Pluto and Virgo. And Virgo is all about like, let's get the data and let's solve. And so they were instrumental in creating systems that help production flow a lot better, and also getting like a lot of the stuff around healthcare, really. So, and some of it's been good and some of it hasn't been so much. But our generation and in the collective right now, we're dealing with a different set of issues. We're dealing with equality and human rights. I mean, a lot of generations have, but we are in a big way. And also, we're dealing with the crisis of overproduction, the recycling, the plastics. Like, this is our generation's burden. And yeah, we're trying to
Might
clean
be
it
the
up.
last burden if we don't get our shit together and stop killing the planet.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the in many of those topics, the theme is self-accountability. It's like, again, you know, there's not a black and white situation. Everyone has to do what's best for themselves. It happens in stages, but it's like we can't look for this external that flash keeps happening. But the thing is that we have to get to the point where we're looking at, how am I contributing to whatever's going on in my family, with myself, in my government, in my community. And though I know there's so many things happening in our government that are horrendous, and I don't want to like breeze over that, But if we are not together ourselves, we can't help anyone else. So again, everyone, maybe that's your job to be involved in. I think that's beautiful. But a lot of it is, how can I get my shit in order, my family stuff in order, my community stuff in order, and let things kind of come out, or I don't know what the word is, but
like
let
a
that
ripple effect.
exactly
Yeah.
let that
Yeah.
ripple out. Because
Totally.
what happens is, and I see this with a lot of people, is we get so caught up in what's happening, which is horrendous. It's sad, it's sick, it's disgusting. But then that person starts to get stressed out. That person starts to get sick. That person starts to go into depression because they feel so victimized or so like they have no control. And so we just have to be careful about what information we're taking in, what we're watching, who we're around, because we can't let those things that are happening really deplete us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's just kind of goes back to be the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even take the majority of people to create a quantum shift.
Yeah.
It really only takes a small number of people to evoke change. So, like, that's been proven.
Right.
So,
And I think self-care and spiritual healing is integral, especially for activists now. Like, I respect people who are on the front line so much for doing that work. A lot of us are kind of, content just sitting behind our phones and posting articles and posting our little own op-eds on whatever social media platform and feeling like that was good. I did my job. And it is important. We need the information. We need the information to be spread, but we need the correct information to be spread, because there's also, Russian bots posting crazy ass articles that aren't true. But you're right. We need to be intentional about the information that we're taking in. We need to be intentional about the people that we're working with, the causes that we're getting behind. We're so quick to just repost every single thing about all the travesties that are happening in the world. It's like, where can you be the most effective? Where does your energy fit? Maybe it is just being like a healer and a support person for somebody who is actively doing that work. Offer those services, make that known. But yeah, I feel like everybody kind of needs to get back to that village mentality. We all have a role, we all have a job, we all take care of each other, and then we can kind of shift the world to be where it needs to be, as opposed to what's happening right now.
Yeah, and energetically speaking, beyond the government, and I don't want to get into like the conspiracy theory too much, but there's certain aspects of our reality that are negative and that feed off of fear and worry and all of those energies. So as an example, like I remember seeing that picture of the gentleman with his little, I think it was a baby daughter, and they were both face down.
Yeah.
And I wanted to cry. It was just terrible. And so for me, it's like, I know that I was sad and I was affected by that. But then it's about, I'm sending this prayer of love, right? Because instead of me being sad and worried and angry and fearful and staying there, I'm feeding one aspect. But if I can experience my emotions and then send love, or surround that person in light, or just keep my prayer, my intentions here, then I'm feeding the other side. Yeah. So that's how we have to be careful about. It doesn't mean that you're not seeing the reality of it if you're not super outraged every single day. So we have to remember there's two sides.
Yeah.
And we have to remember what energy is feeding these sides.
Yeah. It's like, take the outrage and channel it, manipulate it, mold it into maybe, like you said, prayer, or seeing how you can be effective in fighting, for change.
Yeah, going out and doing a good deed. Like she said, it's like, what are we feeding? So even if I have that moment of sadness, right, but then later on I go buy coffee for someone that I think needs it, right? So it's just like, I'm doing this good deed. So sometimes it doesn't mean you have to directly do something for that. It's what we're feeding into our reality is a huge thing.
Yeah, the battles that you see in movies between good and evil, it's very much real.
Yeah.
And that's an excellent thing to think about as we scroll through our news feed.
Yeah, our reality has become very warped, obviously intentionally by media, government, all those things. They are creating this almost simulation. And I don't want to say like simulation so it's not real. Like people are dying, people are being treated poorly, and that's very real. But it's all being done to, like you said, feed the fear, keep people separated, keep people fearful. We fear what we don't understand, and we do not understand each other. We do not understand humanity as a whole, or the root, which is spirit. So collectively working on those things, you're absolutely right.
Totally. Yeah. And as an astrologer, I can look at it both ways. Like on one hand, things are bad right now. Things are hard. But on a much larger macroscopic level, it's like, well, this is part of our unfolding and evolution. Like, we as human beings, we all have different levels of karma, and we are here for a reason. We are here to show up. We are here to interact. We are here to make choices. There is a big discussion in the astrological world about fate and free will. And my favorite response to it is, well, they're the same, because if you believe in karma, your free will is creating karma. And so whatever happens to you that's quote unquote fated, wouldn't that be a byproduct of your own free will?
I like that.
And eclipses really highlight karma. So eclipses are cosmic course correctors, and right now we are having to face our collective karma. So we have an obligation as a human being in our personal lives, but also in how we involve ourselves, how we participate. And lack of participation still counts as participation, meaning if you aren't participating, then you're participating by being apathetic, basically. So that's just something to think about. Doing
nothing is still something. I got that. That came to me this weekend. I was thinking about something completely different. But it was like, doing nothing is still doing something. It is the choice there. So to do nothing is still doing something. If you're being complicit, in these acts that are happening, like, you're doing something. So choose, if you are doing nothing, what are you doing nothing about? And how are you using now that energy, that open energy? To course correct or whatever it may be.
And a lot of the things that people talk about, whatever's going on right now, it's been going on for a long time. It's just now that we're seeing it. And if you think about a lot of even a 12-step program, they talk about being aware that you have a problem is a step towards healing. So at least now we know a lot of this shit is going wrong and all of that. And I want to just make a side note that's like a pet peeve of mine recently. And this is about the spiritual community. We're going to put that spiritual community in quotation marks. A lot of us think we got all the fucking answers. And we are real quick to look at what the next healer's doing or the next person's doing and who's right and who's wrong. And I think I've just seen a lot of that in our community where people are wanting to seem like they're the authority and they want to talk about other people and they're not. We don't need to be in that space right now. No. Everyone needs everyone right now, and everyone's going through their journey and everyone's doing the best that they can. And if this person goes to that healer and we don't think that healer's skilled or whatever the case, maybe that person that's going to that person needs that person for some reason.
Absolutely.
It could simply mean, wow, I don't need that person. I think I have the answer myself. And that person did their job. So I just want to say that because I've seen a lot of that recently and it's really bothering me. And I feel like we need to get off of our high horse and we need to know that we all have a lot to learn still, and stay humble and allow people to practice the way they practice, because we are the last people that need to be against each other.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just been coming up for me a lot. And I hope whoever needs to hear that hears it.
Yeah. And understanding that the responsibility of being a spiritual practitioner, so to speak, and the deep trust that people put in you, and how do you use that trust? How do you wield it? It is a very big responsibility for someone to come to you and say, like, I have this problem, or I need this sort of healing, and I'm looking at you to like help me.
Right.
I think people do get, ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, I'm like, go see other tarot readers, go, you know, I might not be the one for you. My delivery might not connect with what you need to hear.
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah. And usually it's layered.
Yeah.
Right. I've seen plenty of quote unquote, let's just call them healers. And each one of them have provided me with something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something. So there's not going to be one person that comes in and just makes everything beautiful.
No.
Even something as powerful as plant medicine. You can't just do one ceremony and think your life is going to be amazing.
No.
Right.
They work together. It's that connection that
Yeah, when I first started out doing hair, I was like, well, who are my clients going to be? And my mentor was like, your clients will come to you. Like, you will attract your clients.
Yeah.
And I found that to be true in the healing world as well. Like, people are going to track you down because on some deeper level, like, you have a message for them.
Yeah.
There's a resonance there.
I mean, that's with anything in general, with people. And
Totally.
Can I say something real quick? Just one pet peeve, and then we're not going to make this a
2-hour
episode, but can y'all stop using the word tribe? You have not found your tribe. There are people in tribes, legit.
Yeah.
Indigenous people, they're in tribes. You got a couple bitches you like to chill with and do some crystal singing and singing bowls, whatever.
Right.
That's not your tribe. That could be your squad. That could be your team. Those could be the homies. That could be your circle. They're not your tribe. So please, everybody, stop with the tribe. Your bride tribe, all the tribe. You're not in a tribe. Sorry, that's it. And gypsy. Stop using that word too. Just because you like to buy plane tickets and you're a little flighty and you got some big pants from India does not make you a gypsy. Okay, those
Not
are
big
real
pants
people.
from India.
Yeah, you got them little joints from Passport to Peru. Now all of a sudden you in a tribe and you're a gypsy. I don't think so. So let's be really intentional about the language we use from now on.
And you know what's funny is that I know someone who is Indigenous Native American, and he says that tribe isn't even an appropriate word, even if you try to use it in a certain context.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even what certain groups are referred to as. So
yeah,
I don't know.
People bite onto these like buzzwords and now like, oh, I have, we have to use them. We have to. It just feels like, oh, gypsy is now synonymous with like white girl who likes kombucha and has some crystals. And it's like, no, those were real people. They have an entire history.
Yeah.
And that was used as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Like we're not, So just be intentional. Use the language you have. Okay. Know where these words come from. Know that words have power. Know what you're using. Yeah. Just because we're spiritual and because we think we had past lives where we maybe were a gypsy or a healer or part of a indigenous tribe doesn't mean that we know that experience here and now. So we just have to remember that.
Yeah. Bringing up words, it's so interesting because you look at like a lot of the dialogue that we use, and one of my favorite practices is looking up the etymological origins of words. And there was like a meme going around, and it was like, careful with spelling, because our spelling, you cast a spell. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
What else did it say on there? It was like, well, anyways, I just looked up, I was reading an article, Caroline Casey was interviewed in the Mountain Astrologer, and the word disaster comes from against the stars.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Oh, that might be a line in a poem, Catherine.
Yeah. Dis is against astro, disaster. And then consider. She said, I'll have to post the quote online, but she said, to prevent disaster, we stop and consider, because consider means with the stars. Con is like with. Con?
Gone.
Gone, yeah.
And sitter comes from the root word of sidereal, which is having to relate to the stars.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a sidereal zodiac that we use.
Yeah, and that to me makes sense because even we talked about earlier where we may not be aware of a certain transit, but we could feel it. Like the more intuitive that we get, the more in touch with ourselves that we get, the more that we can feel what's happening on the larger scale. And that's why that meme is so funny that talks about like going to astrology to figure out why you're feeling moody or why it's like what star or what planet can I blame this on?
Right.
You know? But it's true in a sense that, yeah, it's like as above, so below. And so the more that we're disconnected from what's going on above, the less we may know about what's happening here and now.
Yeah, and in our language, so a lot of our words come from the planets. So when we're talking about Saturn, you get words like stop, construct, Satan, any ST word.
Saturn, man.
Stephanie.
And then Jupiter, you get like joyous and jubilant. And then Mars, you get mark, like a point, like mark. And trying to think of some other ones. Like seeing red, like it's the red planet. And then with Venus, you have words like veneered or venereal disease, and aphrodisiac also. And then
Of Aphrodite and
and then moon, you get lunatic. And with Mercury, you get like market. So if you look at all these, just do it as a practice. Look up the meanings of words and you'll be really surprised where it comes from.
We have to remember that like all of those things, like as you said, as above, so below, it's that tethering. Like we can't forget that we are connected to everything. Sometimes we think about, we're connected because we're online. And that is a sense of a connection, but like we are connected to the planets. We are connected to this planet, which we obviously forget because we're destroying it. But yeah, just like the connection, we are connected to each other. We all have ties, our degrees of separation. And I think that feeling of disconnection is what keeps people feeling like isolated and operating in that fear and that ego of like, I have to just collect all this for me. And
So I just got back from the Great Lakes Astrology Conference and I was talking about the dark goddess and I was talking about the dark phase of the moon and I was talking about why I think people want to connect with Lilith so much suddenly. And I spent the majority of my lecture linking the symbols of the dark goddess, which we're going to do some episodes on, with the dark phase of the moon. And the dark phase of the moon, as we talked about in previous episodes, it's threefold. You have the moon cycle that is ending. So it's very much ending and going into the new moon cycle. And then you have still in the dark moon growing on the other side. So we see that descent into the underworld and then starting to come out, but you're still kind of in the dark. You're still kind of figuring it out. And basically right now we're in a time when a lot of major cycles are ending. And so we use the lunar phase with the other planets too. So like we look at the full moon and that is created by the moon's relationship with the sun. Well, other planets can be in full moon phases. So right now, Venus is opposite Saturn. So any planet in opposition is in full moon phase. So they are in their full moon phase right now. We're entering a lunar eclipse. It's a full moon phase. But these bigger cycles, again, I mentioned Saturn's conjunct Pluto. This is an ending. We have the Jupiter-Pluto cycle ending. We have Jupiter-Saturn cycle ending in a very, very big way. So I think all of us on the collective are feeling this sense of ending. We hear that the earth is dying. Our systems are crumbling. Patriarchy is ending. A lot of stuff is ending. But also when we're in the dark feels just as much like a crypt as it does a womb. And also when you're in the dark, you feel alone. And when you feel alone, you're afraid of other people. And we're seeing all of that right now. Fear of other people. And also endings are new beginnings, but there's also kind of that fear that matches the excitement of the unknown.
Yeah.
So I think we should be excited about what comes next. Look at everything that's ending right now. Yeah, it all sucks. We all want it to end right now. So let's get excited about what's around the corner and know that we are contributing to it right now with our voices, with our free will, with our choices, with what we support. We can do this.
Yeah.
I think it always gets worse before it gets better.
Totally.
So that's what I do have that Sagittarian optimism that it is about to get better. And I am inspired by seeing the people who are out there doing that work and, you know, the people around in my community as well and the conversations we're able to have. So I am hopeful and it will get better. We're just, you know, in that dark phase right now.
We're in the trenches.
We're in the trenches, but we can come out of it.
Yeah.
Things are, oh, sorry, just real quick.
go ahead.
Like, it's been bad with, like, Trump getting elected, but look how many women are in Congress now.
Right.
So, so that's the good thing. That's the good come up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The awakening.
Level up.
I felt that when he was elected without even knowing what was going to come. I even did a video that, like, listen, I'm not advocating for him, but if Hillary or someone else would have been elected, people would have been like, business as usual.
Politics
things
as
are
usual,
fine.
yep.
Everything's great. America, whatever. And now it's like, oh, we've got to do some things differently. And so, yeah, sometimes change can come in a weird way. And I've even found that from a healing standpoint is that life is mysterious. The way things work is mysterious. Sometimes the things that we thought were going to be amazing turn to shit. Sometimes the things we thought were never going to work ended up working out amazingly. So sometimes we have to be careful about attaching to the way we think things are going to look. And just another thought I had when you were talking about the planets, I had someone recommend listening to the frequencies of certain planets. So like in your meditation, so for example, the Pluto energy can be really scary. You know, going to YouTube, pulling up the Pluto frequency, kind of connecting with it. It's almost like you're working with it instead of being like, oh shit, what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good tip for retrograde.
Yeah, so it's
work
like,
with
let's connect with the frequency. How does it speak to you? How does it feel in your body? You know, this isn't for everyone, but you could even talk to Pluto, like, what is it that I'm supposed to be working on? What do I need to know? Hey, listen, I'm down with the transformation, but how can we make this as easy as possible? How can I not get totally kicked on my ass? But the point is like, don't run from it. Ease into it. And like we've been talking about, connect with other people that you trust. So when you do feel like, my God, I don't know what's happening, connect with people that you trust, that you can cry in front of, that you can talk about your innermost things with. So that way we can use this energy and then we can come out on the other side new.
Totally.
Instead of feeling completely battered or broken.
Totally. Yeah. And on that note, like with connecting with Pluto intentionally, and you said face it. And there's a couple ways that you could do that. Sometimes Pluto is literally taking control of the situation and stepping into your power in maybe a way that kind of first feels a little bit uncomfortable, but it's really about kind of stepping up and using your voice, using your resources, whatever. But other times it's about getting vulnerable. You got to take your clothes off to meet Pluto, go into the underworld. And like you said, you know, crying, like people that you trust. And it can be really powerful in that way too, finding a new sense of power through that process of facing.
Yeah, it sounds like surrender.
Oh yeah,
complete. Like, just like I thought about, like some people in their meditations use like a violet flame, right? So it's like you're in meditation, you're envisioning or visualizing a violet flame, and you're just allowing that flame to burn things off. And I find that when I do that, I can feel kind of a release. So there's different ways of going into that surrender energy and like you said, facing it, you know, like, okay, it's here. Yeah. It's almost like, you know, when, you know, as a mother, you know, no one looks forward to labor. like, oh shit, I'm going to push this baby out of me. Yeah. But guess what? You can't run from it. No. You can't stop it. you have to just come to it and surrender as much as you can and allow the process to just
surrender
move.
to the labor.
What a great Pluto symbol.
It's crazy. That happened like 20 years ago and I'm still like, oh shit.
Yeah. My shit clenches up. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about it. Too soon.
Well, collectively, we're in the contractions right now.
Yes, the contractions. About to hit them labor pains. But on the other side, hopefully will be the rebirth of this planet, of our collective spirit, of the way we treat each other.
Yeah.
So try to go forth with that.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what else this eclipse will bring, because the eclipses tend to have a reverberation and echo, and we get to work with them for a while. We feel them most intensely when we're in it, but the eclipse degree remains sensitive, and when other planets hit it, it gets activated.
Yeah.
So, this one is a highly volatile eclipse, and it really is inviting change, and it kind of change that brings in more nourishment and more self-care. But with Eris, as I mentioned, squaring it, we're going to see revolution. We're going to see movements. We're going to see retaliation. So I'm interested to kind of see what happens. We've had some big things happen in the news already this week with Trump telling 2 congresswomen of color to go back to their countries.
It's like, this is our country, idiot. Y'all brought us here. We would have been, send me back to Puerto Rico. Like, I'm cool. But also, break that chain. And that's also happening on the island as well. They're calling for the resignation of the governor because he is corrupt. He's just a puppet, a pro-statehood puppet. Read up on it. Educate yourselves on Puerto Rico. It is part of the United States, lest y'all forget. Not that you necessarily want to be, but...
Shows what he knows.
Right. So that's happening there, and women again are leading that revolution. They are out on the front lines. I've been trying to stay up on the news, watching the videos, and it is inspiring to see. And on, the congresswomen here speaking out as well. That is another beautiful thing to see, is like, you can't just say whatever you want just because you're in power. Thank you, free will. Thank you, free speech. Like, we can retaliate. We can use this energy, this discomfort to kind of make space and create a little organized chaos to shake things up.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that about concludes this episode of The Fallen Fruit. Lynette, where can we connect with you?
You can go to my website, LynetteRamos.com, and I'm on IG at Lynette.Maris, Maris 3.
And do you have any projects that you want to tell us about that you're working on right now?
I'll be at Coven on July 21st doing some energy clearing, so I'm happy to connect with them. And I'm doing personal sessions, I'm doing quantum healing, and I'm doing energy clearings. So those are the things that I'm focusing on right now.
Beautiful. What about you, Stephanie?
You can follow me on IG. That's probably the best way to connect with me. At st.ginese. I'm still reading at Coven on Fridays and Saturdays. Tomorrow I have my event at Quintana's, Tarot Tuesday. You can get tickets for that on Quintana's website. And then I also have a featured poetry reading coming up on July 23rd, which is a Tuesday. It is at Bookhouse Brewing on West 25th. They do an open mic, but they've asked me to come out and be like the feature for the open mic.
Awesome. I love that place.
Yeah, I'm going to read some poems. Well, come through.
Let's go.
I'm going to read some poems, talk a little shit. You know how I do.
Do what you do.
Do what I do. But connect with me. Let's talk about things and figure out how we can heal and move forward. So get at me.
Awesome. And I'm Astro Catherine on Instagram. You can also find me on my website, www.catherineurban.com. And you can I just recently did a website build out. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's super easy to just go there and click and book an appointment with me. So find me there if you want to get a reading or see what else I have going on. I have some classes that I'm starting to teach at Coven. I've taught 2 so far. They've both gone amazing. So we'll be posting one on the houses. We're going to talk about what houses are in astrology, and we're just going to kind of dive into that topic a little bit. So that'll be our next one, and that should be, you should look for that in early August.
Cool.
But it'll be posted with Coven on their Instagram or on Eventbrite.
I love that we're all working at Coven.
I was thinking that, like, we're all plugged into Coven, we're all connected.
Shout out
in some way.
Coven, shout out Miranda Scott for giving us all a place to kind of like grow and build community and do what we do. So love her. Go support Coven.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coven.
It's a cool place.
And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. And we will see you in the treehouse next time.
Adios.
Adios. I was just thinking the same thing.